Hey crocheters! In today's video, I'm going to go through my favourite makes of 2025. This isn't everything that I have made, but it is my top picks. I've split them into 4 categories. We've got blankets, clothing, amigurumi and miscellaneous. Feel free to use the timestamps down below if you want to scroll through, but I would recommend waiting until the end where my most recent commission is, because I think you're really going to love them. If you're a new viewer or a returning subscriber, you are most welcome. Without further ado, grab a hot drink, grab some snacks, grab a crochet project, and come with me through my top picks of 2025. Just before we begin, leave me a comment down below of your favourite thing of 2025. Did you find a new yarn that you fell in love with? Maybe a yarn dyer or a pattern designer or one pattern that you really loved. I'm always looking for recommendations and I would love to hear your thoughts. Right, let's get into it. The first category is blankets. So my first make of the year was a commissioned blanket, this one here, and this is the second time that I have made this particular design. The yarn that I used was Hayfield Spirit Sundown, and I actually have some left over here still. Now, Hayfield Spirit do loads of different colorways for this, and they're all gorgeous. But if you can't get your hands on Hayfield Spirit, James C. Brett do a dupe of this in like the exact same colorways as well. I really love this colorway, and actually I was inspired to make this originally by an Instagram post. If I can find it, I'll insert it here, where they were making sunburst granny squares with this yarn, and I fell in love with it and I thought, I need to make a blanket. I need to make a blanket. This was a commission and the first blanket that I made of the year. It wasn't a massive blanket. I think it was under 100 squares. I want to say maybe 50, 60 squares, but it was enough to go along the edge of a double bed. And in terms of a pattern, I didn't follow one. I essentially found the sunburst granny square pattern, made multiples of them, did a border in cream, and then added a bobble edging. I spent some time on YouTube and researching a little bit about some edging that I wanted to try, and I hadn't done bobble edging before, so I thought, why not give it a go on this one? And I think it looks stunning. In terms of like blanket construction, this is so easy and really quick to work up. Like if you are someone who crochets in front of the telly, then you could get through a couple of these skeins of yarn and make like 50, 60 sunburst granny squares really quickly. And then what I learned on this project, essentially, the first time I made this, I thought that I had tucked my ends in well enough, but that wasn't to be, because some of the magic rings did unravel, which was very frustrating for the amount of time that it took me to make the blanket. So what I learned on this one is to really make sure that my ends are tied and tucked in and that they're not going to unravel. So like double knotting as much as possible where I can. My next favourite blanket of 2025 was my hand-dyed merino blanket. I've actually got it here as well, but holding it up, you're probably not going to be able to see the whole thing, but just to give you an idea of the different colours within it. Now, I am classing this as a 2025 make because I completed it in 2025, but disclaimer, I did not start this in 2025. This is about 110 granny squares, and I did, as you can see, a like double border and then 3 rows of edging as well. This took me a long time, okay? This took me a long time. Disclaimer. I definitely started this in 2024 because I was looking back through my images where I was just gathering different sunburst granny square colours, and it was essentially inspired by a hand-dyed yarn subscription that I get. And if you've been here and if you've been to this channel a couple of times, you know I will have spoken about it a couple of times. But I also picked up mini hanks from craft shows or just when I saw them around. So really there was no grand colour scheme. I just had the idea that I wanted to bring together all of my favorite hand-dyed yarn, essentially. If anyone has made a blanket out of merino yarn, especially to a size that would fit, this covers a king bed, you know, like half of a king bed, you'll know how heavy this is. This is so heavy, which is satisfying for cold evenings, I will give it that. Again, there was no real pattern for this. I just made sunburst granny squares, added 2 border edges this time instead of 1 for the other one, and then chose to do just a straight edged border. What I learned about this project taught me that I can actually finish a project that I gave up on. Now, I have talked about my ADHD before, but something repetitive like granny squares takes so much energy for me to complete. And what happened with this was I started making these in 2024, and then I had a stack of them and I was bored and I wanted to make other projects, so I just left it on the side. But I came back to it in 2025 because I wanted to finish it and I had a vision that I wanted to carry through. So this essentially taught me that I do have the capacity, even if it is a slog, and it was a slog, to create blankets like this that are repetitive, that do bore me and aren't the most creative essentially, but it's stunning and I'm so happy with the final result and that I did persevere. This is also the largest thing I've ever made in crochet. It's absolutely massive. I don't know if I will ever make something as big as this again. It would have to be something a bit more challenging for my mind if I was to make something big again, but this may be the biggest thing I'll ever make and will ever make. And then the last blanket for the category, which makes one of my top picks of 2025, was my Persian tile blanket. Now, if you've been in the crochet community long enough, you will know about the Persian tile blanket. It's designed by Janie Crow, and there are so many versions existing out there in so many different colorways, and I feel embarrassed about how long it took me to like find out that this pattern existed, because this is definitely, I feel like it's maybe like over 10 years old pattern. I feel like it was released in like 2013 or something, and I only found out about it this year. This was, and my friend can vouch for this, this was a hyperfixation pattern. I spotted this pattern, immediately fell in love. You know, when you find those projects that you see and you think, I need to make that. I need to make it right now. Right now. This was that pattern for me. I bought the pattern immediately. Then I got on to looking at the colorways that I wanted to do, and I eventually landed on the peppercorn one. So this was a kit that you could buy and it used 100% wool. That kit was over £100, and knowing myself, I didn't know if I would actually get through this pattern given my, you know, history with blankets and me getting bored. So I colour matched the peppercorn colorway with acrylic yarn, and I used a combination of Stylecraft Special DK and Yarnsmith's, like Wool Warehouse's Yarnsmith's own acrylic DK. And I mean, the result for me is insane. Insane. I don't have this blanket anymore. I did gift it to my mum because this is 100% her colours and something that she would like. So this has gone to my mum, and I made this in like 3 weeks. As soon as the yarn came, by the way, the yarn total was about £20 to make this. I mean, obviously many hours, but £20 in yarn to create this. And then the pattern was like £6 or something. And then this took me about 3 weeks. And I was working on this like every day, solid, like mostly every day for 3 weeks, as best as I could outside of work and at weekends. And my advice would be, if anyone was to try this, there is no way I would ever have got through this pattern if I'd have done it tile by tile, if I'd started from the beginning every single time for the tiles. 100% recommend doing like a production life cycle. So do all of round 1, all of round 2, all of round 3 on every single tile that you need to do in those colorways. and I batch did it. So I think there's a couple of colorways in there for the larger tiles. I did like one colorway first, so 4 of those. Then I did the second colorway, all going from all round 1, all round 2, all round 3, if that makes sense. There is no way I would have made it through doing it tile by tile. It just would not have worked. This is a pattern I want to do again, but I want to pick my own colours after looking at some other people who pick their own colours. What I learned with this pattern, essentially, I actually didn't think I had it in me to finish a pattern like this. Like I said, given my history of blanket patterns and getting bored and not getting through them, and also when something is so large and I know it's going to take a lot of work, I hate to admit it, but I am immediately put off, really. But this one, I actually did. I actually managed to do it, and I think it was just breaking it down in a way that worked for me. I can do patterns like this, and I need to maybe try more of those in the future. Moving into the second category, which is clothing. Next up is the flower vest, which is a free tutorial on YouTube by Crochet by Bev. Now, I don't have photos of me wearing this because I made it too small. I made it too small, so I can't really wear it and I need to redo it. But it's still one of my favorite makes because I love it and I really want to rework it and maybe make it again. So I do still have it here. It's not really going to do it much justice holding it up. But hopefully you can see the pattern design, and I really like the colour that I picked. Great for summer. It's 4-ply yarn. Now, I learned a lot on this pattern. I learned a lot, okay? I'm going to talk about the tutorial first. So I saw the tutorial, didn't really watch it, just looked for what I needed and got the yarn for it. Then I went onto the tutorial and the comments are very hit and miss. So some people say, this is great, really straightforward, I made a top, I'm really happy. And then other people were making some complaints about the questions that they had, you know, how do you do this, how do you do that? And there was some confusion, I think, about the pattern. For me, personally, I found this tutorial fine. You need to basically approach this pattern with patience. I replayed so many different spots of this video to make sure I had it right. I rewatched the intro like 10 times. You need to have patience to execute this, essentially, because you're not, with this flower pattern here, probably going to do a terrible job of explaining, but with these, you kind of work here, and then you kind of work backwards, and you're not making individual flowers and like crocheting them together. It's this row and then this row across. So it takes a bit of time to get used to that, but once you get used to that, you're off. Like, you know what you're doing, and it's easy. I would not recommend this for beginner crocheters. If you want a bit of a challenge, maybe, but I wouldn't recommend it for beginners. I really enjoyed working this up. I am an idiot because I thought it was going to fit me and it didn't, and it's my own fault. I should have measured properly and taken some time to make sure that it was going to be right. I love it all the same. The yarn I used for this, as I said, was 4-ply, but specifically it was Drops Saffron. And I learnt that I really need to measure and make things a little bit bigger and not just assume that something is going to fit me. My next favourite clothing make of 2025 is my poncho. This poncho is a free pattern by Hey Hey Crochet, and it could not be easier to make. I want to make like 10 of these, use up my yarn stash, see what fun colours I can create. This is a pattern I am definitely going to go back to and make multiples of. The tutorial is a written pattern, I believe. There might be a video, but I used the written pattern. So easy to follow. It's literally granny stitches, you know, round and around, and it's a mindless project where you can just sit there and keep going and make it, because you're essentially just repeating until you get to the length that you want. The colours in this I really like. It feels really like wintry and cozy and reminds me of like mulled wine. That's the sort of vibe it's giving. I used up my stash. I used Hobie Tea Time for this. I think it was maybe 1 and a bit cakes, if I remember correctly, but it's super squidgy and soft and warm, and I just wear it with a black like turtleneck top and a skirt or trousers. It goes with pretty much anything, and it's really cozy. What I learned from this pattern, one thing, read the pattern properly, Danielle, okay? Because I assumed that we were just carrying on right at the beginning when you have 4 corners. No, you drop 2 corners. And I'd done about 10 rows, and then I realized, hang on a minute, why isn't this sitting right? And then I looked back at the pattern, and I was supposed to like remove 2 of the corners that we started with. So yes, what I learned is I need to read patterns more carefully and not like skip ahead as I always do. Love this, great for winter. It's going to be great for January. I can't wait to keep wearing this and feeling all snuggly. Next up is my Beanie Baby cardigan, and this cardigan has so much to answer for because this cardigan really was the reason that I started to post more on social media and interacting with people in the crochet community, which was so great. Essentially, if you haven't watched the videos or know about this cardigan, this started off with me buying 2 hanks of yarn from my favourite yarn dyer, James Makes Yarn. I go on about him all the time. And not knowing what to do with this yarn. Like, not knowing what to do with these hanks. Because they were so gorgeous, I didn't want to waste them on something like I wasn't going to wear. And the result was, of course, this very bright, fun cardigan that I absolutely love, and is so squishy and warm and just lovely. This pink yarn is merino as well. I think this was Yarnsmith's merino. This is such a fun project. I live in like darker colours or beige, black beige, dark colours. I struggled to push myself out of my comfort zone to make something bright and colourful and fun, and this was that project for me. This does not have a pattern. I essentially went for a like condensed starburst sort of mashup, but not with the border. I tried a couple of different motifs, and this was the one that came out as the favourite. Then I sort of did an edging in the yarn as well, and some edging at the front here, and then I did edging here for the cuffs, like not ribbed. This was just single crochet, and I kind of made it up as I went. What I learned from this is that I can, if I want to, and I take my time, come up with patterns like this myself and do collars and do edges without following something. I can just do it from my head, which is a new thing for me. It's a novelty actually for me. Didn't know I could do that. And I also learned that I can step outside of my comfort zone and make something fun. Next up is my hand-dyed jumper. This is one of my most recent projects that I finished, so I have plenty of footage of this, which I'll chuck in. Again, like my hand-dyed blanket, this was using up a lot of my hand-dyed yarn subscription, all of the ones that you can see here, into a jumper. It took me a while to find a pattern that I was happy to use up all my yarn with, but I landed on the Technoblock pullover by Hooked Hazel. This was after a lot of searching on Ravelry. This is a great stash busting project for any type of yarn if you want to make this jumper. It's really, really simple. It's literally granny stitch, and then you do a chain 2 and a single crochet in between them. So simple. I always imagine this in like 2 tones as well. Like, what if you had a deep green and like a deep orange poking through? I just think a 2-tone color in this jumper would look insane. A couple of things with this pattern. The arms are a bit tight, especially kind of under the armpit and at the top of my arm. I really wish I could have modified that. I don't think in any way I'm going to undo this now to modify it. So kind of just going to have to hope for the best, and maybe over time it will loosen up a little bit. And some of the ends are poking, not coming loose, but poking out. Can you see? With a pattern like this, I find it really difficult to hide ends, because you can go this way, then you've got a gap. You can go down here and through, but that's actually a very small bit of area to hide something. So if anyone has any advice, where do you put the ends? I essentially wove it through like several and like tied off and cut it, and then they're all poking out now. So I don't know what I'm going to do with that, but this pattern taught me that when I do hit a hurdle, I can overcome it. So I did have a couple of issues with the pattern, just some maths wasn't adding up and I couldn't understand a couple of sentences and I was getting frustrated, especially because it wasn't right at the beginning of the pattern. It was like quite far down, and I thought, I really do not want to have to give up on this project. But I've learned that I can work things out, which I did do. I managed to work out what I was supposed to do, and I'm proud of myself for that and for not giving up. And then the last physical one that I have with me in this category is the Crochet sweater by Paula M. This is obviously in my favorites, but this is the one that I wear the most out of all of them. I have got so much wear out of this already. I've only made it a couple of months ago. I love it, and I'm already planning on making another one. It's very drapey, it's very light, it just flows, it's comfortable. I can wear this when I want to be a bit more fancy with like a skirt, but I can also wear this when I want to be lounging around because it's floaty and it's not tight. I just love it. I really love the colour that I chose as well. This again is Drops Saffron 4-ply. The construction could not have been more simple as well. Like, I can't rave about this enough. And some people might look at this pattern and think it's not very complicated. It's just a granny stitch back and forth. But for me, the simplest ones sometimes win out. The next time I make this, I'm going to make it in a smaller size. So this one does come down quite far, which I like because it's floaty, but I would like to make one that is a little bit smaller, that would sit with that would sit a bit higher with a pair of jeans. That is going to be a future project that I will hopefully get to in 2026. What I learned from this pattern is that I do have patience for repetitive rows. I think for this one, because it's a smaller project, it's a top. And this is one of those projects that, again, if you like to have something on in the background, or you watch a film, or you just want to sit for a couple of hours and get through something, this pattern is great for that. And then the last two patterns I have, I made for my niece. They have already been gifted, so I can add them on here. I obviously don't have them anymore, but I will insert some photos. The first one is this cardigan here. This is the Harmony cardigan by Baby Crochet Designs. This is so simple. It worked up so quickly. I cannot tell you how fun and satisfying it is to finish a top in an adult size that takes forever and then crochet a 1 to 2 year old's cardigan, because you make it like that. You get instant gratification because it's really quick to make compared to obviously an adult size top. This one I made using Yarnsmith's Pebble Haze prints. Some of those prints have really different gradients and quite bold color changes, but this one is a bit more subtle with the purples. It's a little bit more muted, and then I added a white collar because I thought it looked adorable. This is one of my favorite things that I've ever made for my niece, and I've made quite a few things for her. What I learned with this cardigan, I learned that I can make baby clothes, baby cardigans, and not to be kind of afraid of new patterns. And then the second thing that I made for my niece was this vest here. There's a running theme with these sunburst granny squares. I know, I think I was kind of obsessed with them this year, but this one, I saw a photo on Pinterest that looked very much like this, and then I couldn't find a pattern anywhere. So I essentially went and found a motif that I liked that was similar to the image, made that up in several different colors. I used merino, I used my stash, to create these kind of flowers, and then I used cream obviously for the borders, and then kind of just improvised on the front and the sides in how to clean it up a little bit, and obviously added the tie. What I learned from this is that I can colour coordinate because I managed to combine these colours together. And you might look at it and think, the colours are really basic, but for me, colour coordination can be quite difficult. So I'm proud that I learned that I can match colours together. The next category is amigurumi. So my first favourite amigurumi project of 2025 has to be these collie dogs. I was asked by a very good friend of mine if she could commission me to make 2 border collie amigurumis. This is a pattern by Sons Popkeys. I hope I'm saying that right. I'm sorry if I'm not. And this is Finley the border collie pattern. These 2 represent 2 of her dogs that very sadly passed away. So it was really touching actually to be asked to create these. I absolutely love the end result. And obviously I did some modifications to match the colouring of the dogs so that they were more personalised, and one of the pups had a mole on her face, so I added that in as well. This project taught me that I can take on more challenging amigurumi than I thought I could. So there's some different techniques in this pattern that I had not come across before, and it took me a while and a couple of times of reading things and doing some research to make sure that I was doing things right, but I got there in the end, and the result for me is worth all of that time. Next up in amigurumi is Alberto Seagull. I've got him right here. This is a Peek-a-Pow design. Look at his beak. Adorable, adorable. And this is from Peek-a-Pow 3, The Animal Friends of Peek-a-Pow. These books, I don't know if I've spoke about them before. There's 3 of them currently. I think there may be a 4th one like in the works. These are my favorite amigurumi books, hands down. Like nothing quite yet hits upon the like creativity levels, the level of detail and explanation, the color combinations, the designs. I mean, just look at like their outfits. And that's not even like the most complicated, because there's some really complex designs in here as well. These are all the designs that you can do in this book. And there are some much more like challenging designs like this moth here, I tend to save making some of these for Christmas time. Like I'll always give myself a Christmas project between Christmas and New Year, and it's typically a Peek-a-Pow one. So you can see there's one here, there's a frog here, and the polar bear. They're all like when I've got time, I'm not working, and I can just sit down and focus. But I made this one kind of mid-year, and I'm glad I did because he's hilarious. The only thing I didn't do is make his little hat, because I kind of like him without it for the minute, and maybe I'll make one in the future, but not yet. This helped me use up my cotton stash that I have loads of, that I bought specifically for Peek-a-Pow amigurumis, so he's a good stash buster for me. What I learned from this pattern, I don't think I learned any new techniques necessarily, but it did just remind me how much I love making amigurumi. It was one of the first things that got me into crochet. Like, it definitely wasn't clothing, it was definitely amigurumi, and I need to go back to it and make some more because I do miss it, and I love the end results. And then lastly, in the amigurumi category is, of course, Jemima Puddle Duck. I have since gifted this, so I don't have it with me to show you physically, but I'll obviously put some photos up. And this is from the Peter Rabbit Crochet Toys book that I bought earlier this year. This book is by Carla Matrani, but on socials, I believe she goes by a more full crochet. I've probably butchered that. But this book alone, like so many cute patterns, I need to get back into looking at them and making them. I was midway through doing a Jeremy Fisher, but maybe in the new year I'll revisit and make some others. I really like this particular pattern, and I definitely want to make another one for myself. As I said, I gifted the one that I made away, and this was an amigurumi of very much like trust the process. If you've watched the video where I make it, I'm just cracking up the whole time because her head is so massive and she looks like a snowman at one point, but it's worth it in the end. What I learned from this is that I have found a new amigurumi artist that I do really love their designs. And one thing I will say is that if you go and follow this designer, they have so many other patterns. Like, I didn't quite realize just how many other patterns they do have, but they do have historical figures, like female figures. I think she has a Jane Austen doll, amongst many, many others. And I would definitely recommend going to have a look at her patterns, because I bet there's something in there for everyone. And now we're into the last category, which is miscellaneous. There's 4 patterns in this category, and the first one is this mushroom wreath. This was a commission to go alongside the sunburst granny blanket that I showed you right at the beginning of the video. Now, I've made a mushroom wreath before and gifted it to my mum, but this one, I wanted it to be a little bit different, and I tried my hand at embroidery a bit further just on the mushroom stems, and I added some beads as well. This was essentially me trying to find some free patterns for mushrooms and then like modifying a couple and bringing them together and adding them in. I also just used a free pumpkin pattern as well, and I have like several wreaths in my cupboard here that I used that you can just pick up from craft shops or online very, very easily. I really like this one. I forget that I have the creative freedom to make crochet things to go on wreaths, and like I need to do it a bit more, but this commission was lovely and the recipient was very happy with it. What I learned from this pattern was that I can embroider. You know, I'm not amazing, but I can do it, and I can add beads, and I've got the right needles to do it. So I've learned that that's a skill set that I can work upon in the future. Next up, we have this strawberry cushion, which is so squishy. This has been living on my bed since I made it earlier in the year. It has pride of place. This is a free pattern by Hey Hey Crochet. It's the second time I've used her designs this year. And the yarn that I've used in the UK, I don't know if anyone else feels this way, but I feel like in America, chunky like chenille yarn and super chunky chenille yarn seems to be really easy to get hold of. But in the UK, I feel like we don't have many options. So this is a combination of a Burnett blanket, I think, and Yarn Smith's Snug as a Bug, which is a bit cheaper. Burnett blanket is normally like £11 or so for a skein, and then Yarn Smith's Snug as a Bug, if you catch it on a good day, it's like £6. So that's what I used for this, and I really love it. What I learned from this pattern, which is really interesting actually, is that I hold my crochet hook differently when I work with chunky yarn. So I am predominantly a pencil grip holder, but when I work with big yarn like this, I have to go to a knife grip, which is interesting and something that I never thought about, but I can do both, weirdly. Fun fact of the day. Second to last pattern in this category is my free coaster tutorial. This was the first time of me designing anything and seeing if I could design something. Had a lot of fun with this, a lot of trial and error, working out things that I liked and didn't like. I had a vision in my head. I tried a couple of things before I drew that vision and it went terribly wrong, and then I drew the vision and it went a lot better. I've only got one here. I'm using my Christmas one at the moment on my desk. It's flattened out lovely. It's had a lot of use, but I just love it. I really, and I know everybody says this about their own patterns, but I don't care if other people don't make these or download them necessarily, because this was just a stepping stone for me that I felt really positive about. And if people like it, then that makes my heart really warm and joyous. But if no one uses it, no one uses it, but I really like it. What I learned from this, I learned a lot. a lot. I learned how shapes work together, what I do and don't like when it comes to like a vision that I have. I learned that I should draw out my ideas first and don't waste time trying to make something without like having a visual in front of me before I do it. And I also learned that I really want to design more next year. And that will be a goal of mine going forward. Maybe not coasters. I do want to branch out into Amigurumi and see what I can come up with in my brain, but that's a whole other discussion, and I have like reservations and lots of things going on there, so we'll see how we go. But if you're interested, you want to make any of these, you can do them in so many different colors. I'll leave the link up the top if you want to go and have a look. And then the last pattern, which I said to wait for because you'll really love it, is my final commission of the year. If you are my sister-in-law, get off this video, go away. You don't need to see this, it'll ruin the surprise. But I made 2 hand puppets and I finished them on the 19th of December. So they're like brand new, just finished. And these are patterns by Natalia Romanev. I might be butchering that name and I'm so sorry if I am, but here is the pattern book so you can see all of the other variations that you can make. So obviously I made the elephant and the lion. Now each pattern, when I found them, was like £5 each, whereas this book was 20. So in terms of like value for money, I thought I'll just buy the book as well. There are so many different puppet creations, of course, in here, and the body for the most part on all of them I think is the same. So you could work these up really quickly, and it didn't actually take me too long to work this up either. I did have a couple of hiccups on the way that some parts of the patterns were written, but overall so easy to follow and to make. I used Yarn Smith's Chunky Chenille, I think, to make these. Yeah, Yarn Smith's Chunky Chenille to make these. And you're basically just stuffing the top and then the rest is hollow. And then what I learned from making these hand puppets is indenting eyes. I haven't yet come across a pattern, mainly because I made Pika Pals and things, where I have to indent eyes. So I hadn't really done much of it before, and I learned how to do it on this one. So I indented for both the elephant and the lion. They're not like overly indented, just a little bit, and I think it makes it look really good. So I've learned that. But they're adorable, and these are a commission for my niece, and I'm just waiting for Christmas Day to see the photos, and I really want to hear if she loves them as much as I loved making them. So that's it. Those are my favorites of the year. Thank you for joining me for this video if you're still here. I have made so many other things this year. I need to do a really good, like, proper visual roundup on my Instagram and TikTok. So if you don't follow me already over there, head over and join me. I've currently got a Crochet Stitchmas series going on where I introduce you to a new stitch every Monday, Wednesday and Friday of December. So go and check that out if you haven't already. And let me know in a comment down below, what was your favorite thing that you made this year? Was there anything in my roundup that caught your eye that maybe you would like to have a go at next year? Let me know. So I just want to finish on saying thank you so much for a great 2025. I started my channel this year and I've grown in subscribers beyond what I ever thought that I would. So thank you to all who have been here for the year, and I'm really excited to see you and the content that I have for you in January 2026. Have a lovely Christmas and a lovely new year, and I'll see you in the next one.